Earlier today, I had the opportunity to sit down with Monday's keynote speaker and touch on one of the thornier issues facing the conference and indeed city managers today, immigration reform. Well, first of all, thank you very much for taking time to talk to us. Appreciate that.
Well, my pleasure.
So, give me a little bit of a taste of your talk this morning at the conference.
You know, I wanted to make the point that the great wave of illegal immigration that began in the 70s is, for all practical purposes, over. This is not to say that we won't have any more illegal immigration. We will, and we always will, and we always have. But the numbers have come drastically down. The levels now are equal to what they were in 1970, and more immigrants are leaving the country than coming into the country. Net migration is negative.
Why do you think then that the perception is different to that then?
You know, it's just two reasons. One, that the advocates on both sides of the issue don't want to recognize this. They especially don't want to recognize that enforcement works. And then secondly, is that it's such an emotional issue. People are so caught up in this issue. There's still so much anxiety. The number of unauthorized immigrants in the country remains high. It's come down some, but it remains high, and it's going to stay high. But that's a different issue. That's an issue of what to do, how to integrate, or what to do with the undocumented immigrants here, as opposed to, oh, we're being, assaulted by this huge wave and, we'll never stop it. And that's not true.
What implications does that have for city managers?
Well, city managers have to figure out what to do with those who are here and how to integrate them. And they especially have to deal with problems of how to educate, a great growing number of foreign students in the schools who have tremendous needs for English acquisition. They have other costs and hospital costs, more policing costs. They do have fiscal burdens and fiscal issues, management issues that they have to confront. And of course they have a hostile population. Not all, but some, right? But by the same token, while they've got a fiscal issue they have to deal with, they have tremendous economic opportunities being brought to their community, and one of the things that they should be focusing on is how to harness that.
Now, as you know, this is a particularly sensitive issue here in Arizona. Why do you think that is?
I won't say that it was planned, but it almost was. The border enforcement began from the Gulf Coast and began from the Pacific Coast, from Texas and California, and worked its way inward. The thought was always that the Sonoran Desert and the mountains on the border were a natural barrier, that you didn't really need to enforce or reinforce the border like you're doing in other parts of the 2,000-mile border along Mexico and the United States, where most of the immigrants are crossing and where the drug trafficking too was crossing. But as the enforcement got so much more effective elsewhere, the traffic canalized up through Arizona. And so suddenly you saw this great increase of both immigrants, illegal immigrants, and drugs.
Everybody assumes illegal immigration equals crime. Is that true?
No, not at all. Not at all. Undocumented immigrants commit crimes at a much lower rate than white Americans. Studies in California show as much as 4 times lower, not just a little bit lower, 4 times lower. It stands to reason. They don't want to get kicked out. Also, most of them very law-abiding, hard-working people. But there is this perception, and the perception is not really that crime is happening. I mean, the perception is that crime is happening, but it's more anxiety because you have all these strange people speaking strange languages in your midst, so you naturally feel insecure. Here in Arizona, you had the secondary phenomenon of this great drug trafficking coming through here. But the curious thing is that though Phoenix has replaced Miami as the drug capital of the country, violent crime in Phoenix and Arizona has gone down as the drug trafficking has gone up, and in significant measure.
What What's to be done now? I mean, from listening to you, you're saying that illegal immigration is becoming even less of a problem, and you talked about enforcement. Is this one of these? But we've talked about perception gaps. Is this one of these things that's going to sort itself out as the process continues?
Eventually, it will. California in the 80s was the hotbed of anti-immigration sentiment. I mean, they even passed in a referendum a new law to kick all the children of unauthorized immigrants out of the public schools. The courts blocked it and never went into effect. Today, California is one of the most receiving states for immigrants, including among white Californians. It is that as California has gotten used to this great influx of Mexicans, and there's been intermarriage, and you work together, you live together, you see what the crime figures really are, you see so many other things. You get used to people. They're Californians now. And so California is now one of the most receiving states, and I think we'll see that elsewhere.
Well, thank you very much indeed for talking to us today. It's
My pleasure.
really important issue, and it's great to chat.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.